In the ancient world, military supremacy was defined by a single standard of archery, obliterating its target, controlled entirely by one master, Dronacharya. To learn from him was the only path to the top of the warrior hierarchy. But Drona's instruction came with intense political strings. He had sworn a binding vow to the royal family to groom their prince, Arjuna, into the world's premier archer, ensuring the crown's military superiority. That careful plan hid an unexpected complication. A driven young man named Ekalavya emerged from the deep forest. He lived entirely outside the royal lineage, yet he approached Drona requesting to be trained. This chart shows the hierarchy of ancient knowledge. Drona's instruction was a closed loop reserved for the prince. When Ekalavya asked for entry, Drona rejected him, not for a lack of talent, but to enforce a hard, systemic barrier protecting the royal monopoly. The rejection placed Ekalavya in an impossible position. The only source of the world's most sophisticated martial knowledge had just locked the door from the inside. Ekalavya's response was immediate. He didn't argue or surrender his ambition. Instead, he retreated into the isolation of the forest to begin a solitary training regimen. To anchor his focus, he gathered mud from the forest floor and built a crude, towering idol of Dronacharya. This rough clay figure would serve as his silent, unwavering master. This was the extreme application of Guru Bhakti, devotion to a teacher. Ekalavya used the statue as a psychological mirror. By treating the clay as a living presence, he turned his solo practice into a ritual, correcting his own form against the master's imagined gaze. He fired thousands of arrows daily, using the idol to maintain a mental discipline as rigorous as any royal academy. By internalizing Drona's standards, he bridged the technical gap himself. He didn't need the master's voice. He only needed the master's image to unlock his own human potential. Years later, Drona and Arjuna were traveling through that same forest on a hunting expedition. The quiet of the woods was suddenly broken by a wandering dog, barking endlessly into the trees. The barking suddenly stopped. From the foliage, 7 arrows flew in a blur, pinning the dog's mouth shut so precisely that not a single drop of blood was spilled. The technical execution required for that shot defied the physics of the era. Arjuna stared at the arrows, suddenly realizing that a superior archer was operating in the wild. Drona and Arjuna tracked the trajectory back to a clearing. They found Ekalavya, who joyfully fell to his knees. He introduced himself not as a rival, but as the devoted disciple of Dronacharya. It was a bitter paradox for the elite. The outsider Drona had cast aside had weaponized the master's own image to outclass the royal prince. Drona now faced a crisis. Ekalavya's existence proved that Arjuna was not the best, which invalidated Drona's life's work and his vow to the crown. To resolve this, Drona made a cold, calculated move. He invoked Guru Dakshina, the traditional fee a student owes their master. He decided to exploit the very devotion that had made Ekalavya great. This diagram shows the mechanics of a heavy bow draw. Drona demanded a devastating payment. Ekalavya must cut off his right thumb. Without this structural lock, the kinetic tension cannot be anchored. The grip fails completely, instantly destroying the ability to shoot. The cruelty of the transaction was total. A teacher who provided no instruction was now demanding the student's entire livelihood as payment. Ekalavya's reaction to the demand contained no hesitation or attempt to negotiate. He immediately drew a blade and severed his own thumb. In a single motion, his hard-won mastery was permanently destroyed. The violence left 2 legacies. Drona preserved Arjuna's title as the greatest mortal archer, but he accidentally created an immortal legend in Ekalavya. Ekalavya dismantled his physical greatness to protect the integrity of his devotion. His choice proved to the modern mind that a mentor's power can reside entirely within the student's own commitment, regardless of the teacher's actions.